My name's Matt Webb. I'm from Huntington, West Virginia. I grew up and was raised in Huntington, and I'm a police officer in Charleston. I'm a sergeant with the Charleston, West Virginia Police Department, and I've been there going on 18 years. A little over a year ago, I went to Charlotte, North Carolina for New Year's Eve, and was with some friends, and one of their relatives runs a plastic manufacturing company down in Charlotte, and he said that if you ever come up with any idea that has anything to do with plastics manufacturing, to give him a call, that he would be a good hookup for us. So we all just kind of started brainstorming. You know, it's New Year's Eve, we're having a good time or whatever, and a buddy of mine started talking about the science behind razor blades dulling. Most people believe that razor blades dull from the actual use of the razor blades, when in reality it's from moisture that sets on the blades themselves. It forms oxidation on the razor blade, and then when you use it, it chips off the microscopic bits and pieces of the blade and dulls it. So, you know, we were kind of playing around with different ideas, and fast forward 6 months into it, my cell phone ends up in the water, so I had to extract the moisture out of my cell phone. So I get online and I start looking for different ways to do that, and one of the ways to extract moisture out of your cell phone is by using silica gel. It's just those little packets that you get in everything from beef jerky to shoes. What it is, it's a desiccant, and it sucks the moisture out. So I started brainstorming, started thinking. I thought, well, if you have your razor blade in an airtight container and you put that desiccant in there, you put the silica gel in there, then as it's being stored between uses, it'll suck the moisture out and prevent it from oxidation. The silica gel will be stored in here. And right now, this is pretty heavy duty as far as the volume of silica gel that we can put in there on the next prototype, so that way we can add more, take out more. Like I said, I want the product to last about 4 to 6 weeks. Some changes that will be made is this groove will be deeper, and this will be hinged here, and then the razor blade head sits down in there. But this is made out of the plastic that they use on the 3D printer. I'm not sure exactly what the plastic is called, but it's a little bit more brittle than the nylon. There's clips that go here, so that way this clips down, but ultimately this will hinge up like that. Okay. And then clip down, and the neck of the razor blade will be up in there. The molds are what's so expensive. I think to do the first run of actually making my product is going to be about $10,000 just for the mold alone. Now, as far as actually making them after that, I don't know. So I can't imagine spending $10,000 on a mold and then saying, oh, well, I want this wall to be a little bit higher, or this to hinge this way instead of this way. I mean, that's an expensive process. This, I don't know how much it costs them to make that, but it's 3 hours and running it through a computer and a 3D printer, and boom, you got it in your hand. During my research for this project, there was a website that says that women, on average, shaving products alone, they'll invest $10,000 in a lifetime. Now that's a lot of money. So if I can get the product, which is called Razor Reboot, if I can get it to hopefully save half of that, that's a lot of money. $5,000, that's a used car for your kid. That's money you could put towards a college education. That's a lot of money, $5,000. When you look at it from that angle, it's a lot of money that you're spending on something that you don't really get much out of. To have that idea in your head is one thing, but then to be able to go to a place like RCBI and have them take it from a napkin and actually put something in your hand is pretty amazing.
The Robert C. Byrd Institute is West Virginia's Advanced Manufacturing Technology Center. We offer a variety of services to small and mid-sized manufacturers, including the opportunities to access equipment at our space and the personnel who will help their businesses become more successful. We also have a component that will help you with workforce training and development needs. And as well, we work with local community and technical colleges to bring a new workforce into the manufacturing field.
Since I was a little kid, I've always thought of different, just have that mindset of thinking of things like that, like an inventor would. I don't really consider myself an inventor by any stretch of the imagination, but that's just always the way my mind has worked, and I've come up with several different ideas, and none of them have really inspired me to, you know, sit down and work on a federal grant and apply for a grant. But I think this is a good product, and I think people will use it, and I think it will be beneficial to everybody involved, hopefully.
We have entrepreneurs come to us with a variety of basic designs, and that can be as little as the classic drawing on a napkin. We then connect them to design engineers who use computer-assisted design to help them bring that product to reality. Then we can actually rapidly prototype that product through our 3D printing technologies here, and then connect them with regional manufacturers who can actually help them bring that product to market.
The way the process works is there's an application online, and you go in and there's a bunch of questions that you have to answer. And once your application is accepted, I guess, the next step is to go in and do a presentation in front of the board. And I went in and did a presentation in front of the board, and there were probably 10 people there at the board probably. And you tell them what your idea is, and they ask you questions, and at the end of that, you either get approved or denied. And luckily I was approved and got a little bit of funding, and that was about a month ago that I first went in and met with one of the engineers about actually what my idea was, and now I've got it in my hand just a hair bit over a month later, so it's pretty cool. We're working on the second prototype. This was done on a 3D printer. This, I think, takes about, I think Chris said somewhere around 3 hours to print, and it's a cool process. You just go in there and you meet with the engineers. I don't know how many engineers they have, but I met with Chris and hit it off with him very well from the beginning, and just tried to express to him what my ideas were, and he had me write it out on one of the little notepads, and before you know it, he's got this 3D drawing on his computer, and from there he sent it off to the 3D printer, and next thing you know, I've got a prototype in my hand. I have no clue how they did it before 3D printers were around, because I mean, to see something drawn out even on the computer, until you have it in your hand and can feel it and set something else in it like this product does, it's mind-boggling how they would have done it, we'll say, in the old age. I don't even really know how long 3D printers have been around, but they've got several of them. They've got small ones and they've got big ones, so they can do it all. So if you've got any kind of, even if you've got a product that you need help in perfecting, that's the place to go. Or if you just got something in your head that you can put down on a napkin, it's pretty cool.
One of the great things about 3D printing that a lot of people probably aren't aware of, and this is an example, is that we can print things that have moving parts. So this item was printed on a 3D printer, these interlocking rings, for lack of a better description, and it comes out of the printer as one piece. So 3D printers can eliminate the need for assembly. You can print things that are already assembled. Here's another example of moving parts. This is done on what we call a resin powder printer. It's the printer behind you, which we can photograph in a second. So this was printed all at one time on a 3D printer. You see the base, it prints in full color. You see the different logos and the light bulb. And when it comes out of the printer, the light bulb is already threaded, and it will screw in and out of the base as soon as it comes out of the printer. So obviously, if you were making this out of a different material, you would have to thread this on a lathe to create that. Here's another example. this little house that we printed, this little model of a house. Again, the resin powder printer prints in full color. Most 3D printers don't. And this little house, when it comes out of the printer, it looks just like this. And it comes out as one individual unit, but the roof lifts off of the house, and you can see there are different rooms and even painted different colors down inside the little house. This is a part for a water pump in an underground coal mine for a piece of equipment. And normally, first of all, this could not be machined in a machine shop. This could not be made as one piece. It would have to be injection molded, and that's how it would normally be made. And in this case, the client that we were working with needed created a prototype, and the form, the fit, and what we call the function were not perfect. So he wanted us to create another version. And of course, with 3D printing, it's pretty easy, relatively easy for us to make the modifications on the computer screen and then print out another version in this plastic, as opposed to having it injection molded, which can cost tens of thousands, in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars. The mold is what's really expensive. You don't want to injection mold anything until you're ready to mass produce it. So the cost to the client in a case like this would be about 1/10 of what it would be if they were to manufacture this through the traditional means. And this is just another little example. This was printed as one piece, this little item, which I can turn and I can flip upside down, and it has moving parts, and it comes out of the printer with all these parts are attached when it comes out. This is a model of the Marshall President's Home over by Ritter Park. Perhaps some people are familiar with this home. You can see it's pretty lifelike. It has different colors, and this is an exact replica of the house, just scaled down. This was made using architectural drawings and then creating a 3D version of the house. Pretty cool. This type of items printed in this resin powder are somewhat fragile, so we do treat them with a hardening agent to make them more durable. Now, if I were to drop this house right now, it would still shatter. It's still not that, it doesn't make it that strong. This is the actual printer that it's printed on. So this bed, this is the powder here. It's about the consistency of flour, and it's similar to what you find inside of a piece of drywall or sheetrock. And what happens here is this arm spreads a layer of powder over this bed. A print head then injects a bonding agent or glue and dye into the powder layer by layer. Everything with 3D printing is generally layer by layer. The bed, when it prints one layer, the bed goes down a fraction, just a tiny fraction, prints another layer, and sometimes there are 1,000 layers. And then once it's finished, it's actually buried in the powder. We dig it out, we clean it up, and then we treat it with a hardening agent. But the bed will go down, and the cool thing about this printer too is, and the bed will go down a good ways, we can print, let's say that I wanted to print, let me find something here. Let's say I'm printing this NASA, this was printed on this printer, this NASA image. I could print, let's say, 4 in a layer. Well, once I print one layer, that first layer is buried in the powder. It will put down a fine layer of powder over top and then print another one right on top of it. So we can print, let's say, 5 or 6 deep on this printer. Okay. So that's why we often use it with things like the NASA emblem, which I think was given away at some event that we sponsored with NASA. We also, in our South Charleston facility, we're able to print in various metals. We can print titanium and stainless steel and what's called marging steel, and we print a lot with a high nickel alloy called Inconel, which actually was invented here in Huntington. And we can print with really about any kind of metal as long as it's in powder form. And I can explain a little bit more how that works. There's a bed of powder in the printer, in the metal printer, and then the chamber, what we call the build chamber, is pumped full of a gas. And it's usually nitrogen, but for stainless steel and titanium, we use argon because they're more reactive. And then a high-powered laser simply is guided by the computer file, simply goes over the bed of powder and melts it layer by layer until it builds the item. You can see it's pretty detailed. There are steps going down inside the castle. There are doors and windows, and all of this was created on the printer. There was no other machining that was needed to create this part. It wasn't quite this shiny. We put it in a tumbler that has like lava rock or something like that in it, and it will shine it up a bit. This printer is also a FDM printer, or fused deposition modeling, so it works on the same principle as the MakerBot. It is melting a polymer. The difference is this printer uses a support material which it prints at the same time in order to make sure that the item being printed keeps its shape and doesn't sag and is perfectly round, or whatever the case may be. So the darker material, so once it's printed, it can be taken out of the 3D printer, and the darker material you see here is the support material. The red is what we're actually printing. We would put this in a solution. It's sort of like a very strong cleaning solution, sort of like CLR. Are you familiar with that product? And the dark material would dissolve, but the agent would not harm the red material. So once it's finished, and this would have had support material on it, you have the finished product without the support material. It's not some science fiction and some novelty that people aren't using, but every day we help manufacturers all over the state and just individual inventors create 3D printed items.
The first prototype was pretty on point for what I had in my mind, but I would like to get some actual functioning prototypes and to be able to get different people from different households, people that use different brands, because I want it to be a universal product. I want people that are using one brand or using a different brand to be able to use the Razor Reboot. Some issues that we had with the material that was used on the 3D printer is that it was a little bit brittle for some of the mechanics of my product. And the next prototype we're going to use is going to be made out of nylon. I guess you could use a certain type of plastic, or you could use nylon. And the next prototype is going to be made out of nylon, which gives us a little bit more flexibility. I think the end product is going to be made out of polypropylene, however you say that. I'm not sure if that's a proper enunciation, but it's going to be made out of that. And it's incredible, all the things that they have at the Robert C. Byrd Institute, and just how friendly and how easy they make everything for you, as far as walking you through the process and encouraging you, and it's pretty neat. What the future is to get different prototypes, get a potentially end result of my prototype, have those handed out, do some research, get the product perfected, and then work on a marketing strategy. There's a patent that's pending on the product, so that's a process in itself that could take up to 5 years before you find out anything about a patent. They do a lot of research, and if somebody makes a little bit of change here, a little bit of change there, it's up to the patent offices to whether it's something patent eligible or not. So that's a long and expensive process as well. I found out through the Institute through my father. He's a local businessman, and I'm not really sure how he found out about it. So I found out through word of mouth, and I've got a big mouth, so I've told a lot of people about it. As a matter of fact, one of my coworkers, the Herald-Dispatch recently did a story about RCBI, and they interviewed me, and he had read the article, and he's already messaged me wanting to know who my hookup was with RCBI, and I'm not sure what his idea is, but it's hard to tell.